Hi guys, welcome to Mendoza Makes. I'm Michelle Mendoza, and today I'm going to show you how you can use a recipe as a tool to teach yourself cooking techniques and also to start teaching yourself how to cook without a recipe. Now, I really wanted to make this video because I feel like it's something that's really important and been super impactful and helped me so much. When I sat down to kind of write down everything and put it into words, it was actually really hard. It's kind of a more abstract thought. So I'm going to use a recipe that is near and dear to my heart for cast iron skillet pizza to kind of like demonstrate what I mean and help explain, and hopefully it will make sense and be helpful to you guys. So cast iron skillet pizza was one of like the first things that I was like, I really need to learn how to make this, and I want to learn how to make it really good. And I used a recipe for pizza dough that I already had been using, but I just modified it. I've been doing that with recipes ever since, and I follow the recipe as it is the first time I make it, and then I kind of use that as a guideline.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
I modify it how it works best for me, and it's a lot of trial and error, and it's a lot of actually note-taking, which was surprising to me because if you modify the recipe and you like the modification and you go back the next time to do the same thing, but you didn't write it down and you don't remember how you did it, you won't be able to reproduce that same thing every single time after that. So make sure that you write it down, because that was my number one mistake in the beginning, is I didn't write anything down, and I would make up these like really good, like I can remember this one time I made like espresso flavored like mousse chocolate. It wasn't really ice cream and it wasn't really whipped cream. It was a little bit thicker, like in between, like the texture of mousse. But I didn't write it down, and now for the life of me I can't remember how to make it. I can't remember what idea popped into my head at that time. So write your stuff down so that you don't lose it. So that's one of the things that I started learning with this pizza anyway. And I learned different things from using the recipe as a tool and a guideline to help me start learning how to change things and make things without a recipe. And each part of the pizza kind of taught me a different thing. So when I was making the dough, I was really new to cooking and I didn't know how to knead dough. I mean, that seems really simple. You just kind of push it around on the counter, but it taught me the technique of how to knead dough. It also taught me the importance of kneading with your hands, and like, it sounds really weird, but feeling the dough, because now that I've made it so many times since then, I can feel the difference in the texture of the dough when I'm kneading it. I can feel if it's tough and it's been worked enough and I need to let it rest. And I can feel if it's super soft and it's okay if I keep kneading it. Like, you'll start to feel those differences. The same thing with your other senses. You'll learn to hear things or smell things using your senses in the kitchen. Like, this recipe in particular taught me how to start doing that. So that's been a really cool thing that making this pizza dough has taught me, and a skill that I can apply to multiple other things now, not just the pizza. Making the dough also taught me, or started teaching me anyway, the basic steps of making bread. And then I thought, oh, I want to make French bread. So I made French bread, and I noticed the pattern, that it was similar to how I made the pizza dough. And then I made sourdough bread, and I noticed that's also similar to how I made the pizza dough and the French bread. And you start like picking up on these patterns that are basically the same steps of how to make something, just with different ingredients every time. So you'll start to learn, even with the marinara sauce, you'll start to learn the onion goes in the pan first because it takes longer to cook. Garlic goes in, but then quickly afterwards you put in something else because the garlic can burn really fast, really easily. And then like you'll start to pick up on these patterns, and so really paying attention to what you're doing instead of just reading the recipe and doing what it tells you to do like a robot. So if you start picking up on these patterns and paying attention to what you're doing and noticing like, oh, that's how I made this other thing that other time. And kind of putting the puzzle pieces together, the next time that you go to make something similar, you'll already be thinking like, oh, I probably do this next. Like, this is probably the next step because that's what I've done this other time and this other time and this other time. So you can start kind of building the how to cook without the recipe telling you what to do, based on your prior experience. Now, going back to the example of the pizza specifically, when I got to the toppings and the cheese really, especially the cheese, really taught me the importance and the difference in using fresh ingredients rather than prepackaged toppings and cheese. For example, I say especially the cheese because pre-shredded cheese from the grocery store, they put like a starchy coating on it to keep it from sticking together in the bag, and that coating causes it to not melt as well when you put it on things like pizza in the oven. So instead I would get a big block from Costco because it's more cost effective in our area, and I would shred it at home with my KitchenAid. And man, did that simple one thing make a huge difference. That cheese was so good. It was melty and stringy, and it did that like really cool pull apart thing. Amazing difference just with shredding my own cheese instead of buying it at the store. Same thing for the toppings. I used I got a whole pepperoni and I sliced it myself, which was awesome because I got to dictate how thick the pepperoni slices were instead of the prepackaged ones that you get that are already sliced. I mean, yes, it does take that little bit of effort, but I learned making this pizza, and I'm sure you'll hear it from many other people too, that little bit of effort goes a long way. Every little thing that you can do here and there is going to end up making a world of difference at the end with the finished dish. The other thing it taught me is the importance of layering flavors. I started really thinking about what texture and what flavor each ingredient was going to bring to the pizza at the end as a whole, and how it was going to taste with the cheese and the marinara sauce that I already had. I really started thinking about how to layer those flavors and like build on each other to make a whole range of flavors rather than just one. Even when I make cheese pizza, I'll use 2 different types of cheese. Like with this one, I used some mozzarella and some pepper jack. And pepper jack sounds really funny to put on pizza, but it's so good because it adds the extra little like zing of flavor that you need. It was so good. And then, you know, fresh ingredients, again, like fresh basil instead of the dried stuff that comes in a little, I can't think of the word. All I can think of is sprinkle container. That's not right. What is it? What is it called? Oh my God. Oh, a shaker. The little flakes. Oh my gosh, I used fresh basil and fresh oregano, and I was just like, this is so much better. Like, my mind was blown. Like, I realized that I didn't know what oregano tasted like. All this to say, you can use recipes as a tool to start teaching yourself how to cook without a recipe and make little modifications to make it taste how you want it to taste and improve your cooking little by little by little by little. It does take a long time and it does take experience. Recipes can also kind of teach you the language of cooking if you're not familiar with it. I kind of think of it almost like a cook reading a recipe kind of makes me think of a musician reading music. Good musicians that have been doing it for X amount of years, they can read a piece of music and they hear the music, like they already hear it in their head. They know what it sounds like based on what they're reading. And cooks and chefs that have been cooking forever, they can read a recipe and already know what it's going to taste like. It's kind of its own language almost. And it is a little bit of a barrier if you don't know what some of the phrases used are, and recipes can help you with that. Lastly, just pay attention to what you're doing Make mental notes, make actual notes if you need to write things down and you're like me and I have a crap memory. You'll start to notice patterns, you'll start to be thinking ahead instead of following the recipe and not knowing what's next. You'll start to be able to guess what's next. And sometimes you'll be right, sometimes you'll be wrong. But as you go along, you'll notice that you'll start to be right more often. And finally, I'd say just have fun. I know it sucks when you mess up a dish or you don't know how to do something, and it's really frustrating when you burn something or you mess the dish up and then it doesn't taste good. It doesn't feel great. It feels like, oh man, I failed and now we're gonna eat some cereal for dinner. Really try to focus on the positive and think to yourself, why did it get messed up? Just try to think about what went wrong and how you can do it better next time, and it'll be fine. And if you're cooking at home for yourself or you and your family, really the person that's putting the most pressure on you is you. You're your worst critic, really. So just woosah, it's gonna be okay. I hope you guys like this video. I hope that it helps you kind of start thinking about how you can Frankenstein recipes together and start testing things out in your kitchen. Next week, I'm gonna get back to making things and it's gonna be great. If you like this video or you learned something, give it a like. If you'd like to learn more, subscribe to my channel. I upload videos every Friday. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.